And we are live on this stream.
Hello.
Welcome, ladies.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having us.
So nice to have you on this live stream. Alison Cox, Monica Gilliam. My name's Max. And we're all Talk to the Entities certified facilitators, which is very exciting. And we're basically having some Facebook Lives. There's going to be a couple in English, there's going to be different languages and so forth, that we're going to chat about, like, what's the difference between the beginners class, because a lot of people have done the Talk to Entities beginning class and the advanced class. Like, I mean, what is an advanced talking to the entities anyways? That's sort of like what this is about, and we can talk about anything. And if you guys watching the live stream, if you have any questions, please do type them in. I can see them on screen here, and then we can include you that way.
Go for it.
How's it get better? So you guys have been Talk to Entities facilitators for quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the difference for you personally? Like, what have you noticed is the difference between when you facilitate or attend a beginning class to attending the advanced class with Shannon?
Me first. So, well, I mean, the beginning class, a lot of it is just kind of moving through, like, is this okay? Am I allowed to even talk about this? This is kind of scary. And a lot of the, like, superstitions and, just kind of gunk that people have built up in their world of being aware and, like, communicating with something that's not a person. Not that people communicate with people all that well, but but then with the advanced classes, it's like you get to really go into, okay, we're moving beyond just what is this world into, like, really, how do you play with it? How do you explore your awareness even more? And Shannon is just such an amazing facilitator in being present with, like, where people are at in the conversation, because that's kind of it. It's like we get the basic tools and then we apply the basic tools over and over and over again. We talk to the entities and everything with access. It's like even the most advanced classes are the basic tools, but you're like further into the conversation. It's like the difference between just learning how to hold a hammer and then being like a really skillful craftsman with it. It's you're using the tools and you're more adept at playing with the tools. So with the advanced, you start to, like, open into some of the things that maybe you were just introduced to in the beginning to really apply them. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that way of putting it. It's like you get all the foundation tools, you have all the foundational tools, you start using the foundational tools, and then you're sort of like, what else is possible here? Like, how can you be more masterful with the creation of your life, with entities? And I would say that receiving aspect too, like, what else can you receive? But it's also like discovering what that receiving is for you with entities, because it's not the same for everybody. And like, you have to actually find out yourself. There's no point talking about it, but there's some energies in the class that then sort of like open these different doors, and you listen to other people asking questions or talking about things in a certain way, you go, oh, wow. And then you have access to this other thing and you try this other thing, and then, yeah, the doors open up more.
Yeah,
Alison,
I would agree.
please.
All of that. And it's just so cool. Like Monica was saying, the beginning is you get a manual and there's a foundation, and you can use the tools that you learn in the foundation in any situation with anything that comes up, any entity. And then the advanced, it's almost like my very first Talk to the Entities class. I didn't even know that this stuff was real. I was like, there's an access class and it's about entities. Like, it's real? Cool. And I went into that class not even knowing that, like, most of the fear and the anxiety and the paranoia was entities until that class. And I've taken a lot of classes since then, and it's just been changing things. But the advanced is like, it's like, okay, it's real now, beginning, awesome. And I can play with it. Advanced is like, whoa, like a whole new world. Shannon has an amazing way of just being and inviting you into a different energy that's
undefined. Like, it's not like, well, now this is what you do in advanced class.
Right.
This is the manual for beginning. And advanced even used to have a manual, but she doesn't have a manual anymore because it's so different. Each class is so different, and where we go is completely beyond like even what you can comprehend or try to say or define beforehand. And it is so much about receiving different energies. It's like kind of like that movie Lucy, where she's made to take all the drugs, and like you might see a tree outside and it's like, oh, there's a tree, there's an entity, but then you're invited to this whole different way of perceiving things, and all of a sudden you can see the molecules in the water and the things moving through the tree and around the tree in different colors and all of these things. And then advanced Shannon opens you up to a space where you do see the different colors and the different energies, and you can receive on a completely different level than what you could previously.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I like part of what I love so much about Talk to the Entities isn't even like just what people think about right away, which is like ghosts, but it's really being able to talk to anything, you know, to your coffee cup or to a book or to your bank account or whatever, you know, and to like really, for me, it was like, okay, there are a lot of things that other people can see, you know, that are like, okay, we both agree that this is a thing, you know, but when you can't see it and you don't have the same kind of reference points, then like you actually just have to know what you know. There's not necessarily going to be somebody being like, that's real, you know, and I mean, it's funny. It's like not that everybody's agreeing on reality anyway, but it's still, it's like,
but they think they are.
They think they are, and they use a lot of energy to prove that they are, and to prove that what they've decided is real is real. And so, in a way, when you get into like just the world of Talk to the Entities, it's like, okay, I may be aware of something that nobody else is aware of, and I'm going to have to actually like know what I know, and to no matter how crazy it sounds, and like engaging with it, it's just I find it makes the world so rich, you know. I do a lot of talking to my garden, you know, and being present with the plants and all of that, and it's like that's where I see some of the tools of the advanced class coming in, where you're really being willing to receive that this entity is quite different than you are, and not expecting it to speak to you in a language that you know or whatever, you know. So like, but getting to, like Alison was saying, like, have such a different sense of like the vitality, the aliveness of whatever it is that you're engaging, that it's a part of consciousness, and that you can, in a way, like honor it or respect it by engaging with it and talking to it and like receiving from it. And you know, receiving is something that people have their guard up against so much, of like only receiving the right thing and not the wrong thing, and is this okay? And when you get into a world of energies that are really different than what you're used to, that can be like an easy time just to be like, nope, you know, I don't want to. It's weird. Nobody else can agree with me on like whether this is okay or not. I don't have anybody to tell me what to do here, you know. And like when you go into the advanced classes, just like you were saying, Max, you know, it's like you're there with what you're aware of, and then you get to hear what other people are saying who are engaged who are like really choosing to be engaged in the conversation, you know, and they're applying it enough to come to an advanced class, you know, like they're curious enough to like go beyond the introduction and dive into like, let's really go here. And so then you get to hear what other people are playing with, and it's so inspiring and like opens up this sense of possibilities for like, wow, you can be present with your bank account, whoa, or you can be present with the garden, not just like in your mind, but like really, so like I find that it has gotten me to really trust what I know even more, which has been something that has been, for so many of us, we've been not received our whole lives with like what it is that we know, and me receiving myself has made me enjoy my life more, and me receiving what I'm aware of, and not just like thinking about it, but actually getting to engage with it has just made my life richer, So it's like
Totally.
I'm so like, everybody in the world, like what would it be like if everybody talked to the entities, Like it's a little idea, but
Yeah. And I think like from what you're saying too, and what you said, Alison, about like the Lucy thing, like where there is no more definition anymore, basically, or at least, you have those, you function less from definition, and that's a huge difference. And what I've really gotten from Talk to the Entities advanced classes is like so much less separation. Like when you're dealing with entities, or when you're talking to your garden, or when you're aware of anything, there's less separation there, and actually is. And it's not like that's that thing and this is me. It's like you're being with and facilitating what exists, which includes you and which includes everything else, and which makes it so much more fun, for one, like so much more enjoyable to be like, whoa, this is what's actually going on. It's not all this back and forth, right and wrong, robot situation of how we function in life. It's like so much more the joy of being and knowing as well. Because I would say, and I've heard Shannon say this too, Talk to the Entities is like a real knowing class, whereas like Joy of Business, for example, is like a very strong creation class, what Simone facilitates. And SOP, for example, is like a very energy, hands-on sort of class. But the knowing stuff in Talk to the Entities, exactly like Monica said, is like you can't really align and agree with someone else about the ghost that's standing over there. You have to know what you know, and it really pushes you, in a sense, to have more of you in that way, which is really brilliant. Because beginning, you can sort of get away from it, and like a lot of people still use the tools very much in their head, and oh yeah, it's sort of like the concept. And for me, I mean, full disclosure, for quite a few beginning classes, because I came to Talk to the Entities because Shannon was there, basically, I was interested in her, but I didn't really come because I was like wanted to do the entity stuff, but I did. And what I got was so much of the knowing stuff to begin with. And after several beginning classes, then I was like, what? I'm aware of entities? Because I started using the tools, and then it was like so undeniable. Like when I used the tool, this thing that I thought was like in my universe, like paranoia, for example, or thinking how fucking wrong I was all the time. And I'd use like the clearing tools, and it was like, oh, wow. Undeniable that I'm aware of entities. And this was several beginning classes in. And then I was like, oh, cute. And then like, what else is possible,
Totally. Even like the advanced class also is like over this quarantine thing that was happening, around
that thing. Isn't that superseded now by, Black Lives Matter?
Yeah. That thing that was so like last month. Barely remember what happened. Well, it was like all of a sudden, like my business here had to shut down. I couldn't travel anywhere, so I couldn't go do classes. And I just had so much more time. And I should have gotten worried or like, what the fuck am I going to do? And I was like, okay, well, you know what? Instead of worrying, instead of going into that, I'm going to ask, okay, what's going to create the most? And I was like, oh, and Shannon and the advanced classes popped in, and the Beings of Light classes too. And I was like, okay, I wonder what's in there. Like I haven't listened to an advanced in a while, probably since I took the class last. And I was like, okay, what is that? So I started walking every day for 2 hours, listening to the classes for the first month of the quarantine, and literally like doing the exercises in the classes with Shannon, listening, and passively my life started changing. Like I literally couldn't go out and do things. I had to walk and create with energy and entities and expand my universe with my entities and become like, grow my relationship with my teammates and the beings of light and all the entities I was playing with and the earth. And I was like, whoa. And money just started coming in from nowhere. And I started creating classes easier. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why haven't I been listening to this class every day since the class and doing these exercises? And I can't wait until the next one, because every class is different. And every new door is different that you can open, and it never stops. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you.
That is so awesome. I love that. Yeah. Quarantine has been actually really interesting in what it's opened up. What I've heard from many people, and I've noticed for myself as well, like all the traveling that I did beforehand, I used a little bit as a distraction as well. And it was this predictable reality where I was like, I know where I'm going, I know where I'm going, I know where I'm going. And I was like, because travel takes up quite a bit of your time and energy. But then, just being at home, you're back to I was back to those sort of questions of like, fuck, what is my reality? Like what will I like to choose? Yeah. So it was like really opened a lot of stuff for a lot of people, I think, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then it's also like lonely, talk to entities, I was in staying with my parents for most of quarantine, but their house is right next to this big park that I used to go to when I was younger. It's like a huge park. And I would go there every day, and it was so nurturing, and it was so alive, and it's funny because it's like like you're saying, when you're like traveling or in your routine or whatever, you can just kind of be like, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. But like going to that park, having that space, it was like I got to explore the world right here, that I would usually just like drive right past, and to go around and be in a space and just really be like, wow, this planet is so spectacular. And there are so many beings that are contributing to the creation of this planet. And you can actually engage with them and contribute to the joyful creation of the entire planet, So like going on walks in the park, I got to like say hello to the trees, but then also to the different entities that are creating with the trees. And there's so many ways that we've cut ourselves off from this, from each other, from the earth, from everything that is like right here to create with us, possibilities for the future. And so this thing of like having to kind of step off of our little like treadmill of like, now I go there, and it takes so much time and energy to go there that I'm not even present here,
I was in a hamster wheel.
Hamster wheel. But yeah.
I was going very fast on my hamster wheel. It was awesome. Super fast.
Hamster wheel, but then to be able to like walk through the world really like grateful for the world. I mean, I know that like the work that I've done with Talk to the Entities and the advanced classes, and like it's like when I first started to take access classes, I took classes with Shannon, and like there was a moment where I was like, oh shit, I'm actually going to have to acknowledge something that I've been trying so hard not to acknowledge for a long time. And it was like, there was this doorway of like, oh God. And I went through it, and I can't tell you how many times like in those early days of classes, like I'm like gonna cry, oh my God. Like the courage that Shannon like is in the world, it was like such an inspiration for me, and really like invited me to so much, but with this strength of acknowledging me, you know. It wasn't like, look at me, look at what I can do. It was like her being so present and so potent. I was like, that is possible. I know that that's possible. That's possible with me too, in my ways, whatever that is. But like her kind of like, almost like eagle eye to be like, what are you doing right there? It's like, ah, shit, oh, wow. With such a kindness and such a, I don't have all of the words for it, but it just really.
You're making me cry.
Oh my god! Like it just, I was like, it was a lifeline in a way.
Yeah.
To have someone be so willing to be so strong in what they know and so caring about the world, you know.
Which is also a completely different thing than what we mostly see, which is people being fixed. There's a such a difference between the strength of knowing and the strength of like creating greater for everybody, which Shannon is like brilliant.
Yeah.
And then people being fixed, you know, about their point of view. So totally here.
Yeah. It's so exciting to be like kind of, you know, you're kind of like floating along and trying to like, okay, what's on my to-do list? My life to-do list. Okay, like wake up, get born, figure out
get born.
Figure out what your family is, deal with them / do what you're supposed to do, go to school, do the right things, get a job, probably have a relationship, have the right amount of money, like whose points of view am I supposed to use to do all of this? And so you're kind of just like scrambling along or whatever. And then to have anything in the world be like, hey, you, hi, hello. What would you like to do? There's this whole world for you to play with. Go for it. And there are others for you to engage with who are like in their journey. And then there's the whole universe for you to play with that is like willing to actually talk to you and contribute to you and all of your creations and like and in all of these different ways. So go ahead and practice being present and listening also, you know, to the world around you as it's willing to engage with you in the creation of everything. It's like an amazing wake-up call into possibilities and into like what really is like exciting, you know?
Yeah, and the greatness of you as well is what, I mean, really touched me when you spoke about Shannon, because, you know, she's been such a gift in my life. But that invitation to greatness that she is like incredible.
Yep.
She doesn't let you off the hook for you know,
Nope.
You're miserable and puny, where like maybe in other situations that you've been in, that's been, you know, because
totally acceptable and even like more way ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, and also like a great coping mechanism. Like if nobody's actually going to like really like look at you and acknowledge you and be present with you, then just kind of like doing like, help me, could actually be a wonderful manipulation, but at a certain point it just like dampens the possibilities. And to have somebody be like, no, like actually what are you really capable of is like,
right.
There's actually a lot of people, I'm seeing some comments here and it's going to go over your face a little bit. Sorry, Monica.
Move over a little.
But yeah, like the people that are totally sort of like, well, Kathy a couple of times there, but then also, yeah, like Shannon has touched so many people and she's an incredible facilitator. And apparently we're making everybody cry.
I would like to add to that same thing that Monica said, because grew up in the Midwest and you're just supposed to be nice. And like, have you ever seen that cartoon of like the little mouse in the kitchen and it's on fire and he's got his coffee cup and he's like, I'm fine. Like, that was my whole life until she showed me like, oh, and I didn't get it at first. I'm like, what? What are you doing? You can just be that? Isn't that rude? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That is awesome. Like, you can be the leader of your own life, and she'll invite you to know what that is for you on a level you couldn't even know existed before that. And so, and now, and sometimes people are like, oh, well, this entity's around, or oh, this energy's around, and I can't change it, and they'll go into victim. And I used to do the same thing. I wouldn't tell anybody. I would just be the mouse in the kitchen with the fire around. Like, fire. But it's like, oh, and so if I can't like figure it out and I can't get the thing to go away, I'm like, oh, I basically am like, well, what would Shannon do? Show me a different energy and it will help, it'll facilitate me and assist me in changing it. It's just her being her has been such a gift and continues to be such a gift to me to facilitate things that I don't think I can change or that I wouldn't have been able to change in the past.
Cool, totally. And I just want to mention too, this next advanced class, which is starting next month, July, it's now prerequisites for all like the Talk to Entities facilitators, because the facilitators class is just afterwards. So my point being is, if you are not planning to come to facilitators, but you want to do an advanced class, come to this one, because there's going to be a lot of people that are doing facilitators class, you know, that are basically choosing more. So it's sort of like an advanced class on steroids.
Yeah.
So if anyone's sort of on the fence, I would recommend it. Like, jump in for this one, because you have a lot of people that are like, that have either been facilitators for many years, or they're becoming facilitators, or like they're basically desiring to choose more in that area. So when you have people that are like choosing more in a class, and you have more of those people, it makes it a powerhouse, basically. So if you're on the fence at all or interested, you know, that's my invitation, I guess, to this next one, which I'm super looking forward to. And it's all online. It's 8 calls online, you know, every 3, I think there's like 3 days in a row, and then a couple of days off, and then another 3 days in a row. I know that doesn't make sense mathematically, but it's something like that with a break in the middle. So you can do it from anywhere, basically.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. I'm really curious too about this way of doing it. With the different online classes now, they've been amazing, because you actually, to be present, it's actually great for Talk to the Entities, because it's like you realize like, oh, I can perceive this over there even though it's not in the room, you know, which is like what Talk to the Entities kind of can feel like in some ways, where it's like, but I don't see anything, but I'm totally perceiving this energy. I mean, you're like reaching around the world to be present with people around the world in ways that you don't have to specifically in a live class when you're all in the same room, you know? And so it's like you can practice this muscle of like expanding out. And for me, as somebody who's like quite autistic, it's such a relief in a way to be able to be present. I really enjoy being present and to have so much space, and like what that space actually requires and allows, you know. And then I'm curious too, because it's like, I think this is like an hour and a half calls each day, and I've facilitated, both Alison and I have facilitated some of the online intro or beginning classes. Since we've been in quarantine, we've been doing that in like 1.5 hour chunks, and it's been awesome.
It's so cool.
It's been amazing to get to be present and like dive in and then dive in again, and not just go for like 5 hours, 8 hours, where you're like, I mean, which is its own thing in a different way, you know?
It just melts your brain in a different way.
Yeah, it all melts your brain, but in different ways. But it's really, the shortcut to what I have to say is I'm super excited to see what this
totally
creates.
Yeah. So we've got a question up on here, and we're going to start wrapping it up anyway. We'll just keep these fairly short. Sorry, Monica, you're just going to have to like. So what has been the greatest gift you guys have received from a talk to the entities advanced so far? So we'll keep it pretty brief, I guess, because we could probably talk about this for hours. Who wants to start?
My brain just went blank, like, what?
Now, if anyone's wondering why there's a hand always going into Monica's screens, because they're actually sitting next to each other, but they just have two different screens going on. There's probably like a bunch of people now that are like, oh, that's what's happening.
No,
and you can see like in the mirror in the background a little bit. When you do talk to the entities advanced, you can start doing this sort of thing.
I'll go.
Go, Monica.
Oh, then I
Should let her go.
A lot of everything that we've been talking about, really, like all of that, and also just like really being that kind of like kick in the butt to be like, okay, here I am in the advanced class. I require of myself to ask questions that go beyond the beginning, you know? Like, I better, and this is me, you know, but like, I better, like.
It's funny, I was actually thinking about exactly the same thing. All right, I'm doing an advanced class now. I really can't pause your foot around like I often do.
Right, and like, if I better, well, it's, yeah, again, just the demand of myself of like, I'm not going to ask a question that's in the manual, you know?
Totally.
So I've had to be like, it's an exciting challenge for me. This is what works for me to be like, okay, what's here so that I could like push myself to go even further, you know, which is huge. So.
Yeah, the further thing is huge. It's like, because I've come to points as a facilitator even where I'm like, well, you know, I got it. Maybe I should just quit now. Like, there's nothing else. There's nothing left of me. And, you know, I'll just let you go. Go on without me. I'm done. I'm all washed up.
I've got my conclusion. I'm going away.
I've got my conclusion. I swear, like every year before every facilitators, I'm like, no, I know that's not mine. And then I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like, I know what I know so far. And this literally happens every year. And I'm like, I know what I know so far. If I stop, fine, great. But if I go, what else is possible? And I can't define it and I don't know what it is. I just know that there's more. And I know, like, just ask, okay, if I take this class, what will my life be like in 5 years, 10 years, 500 years? Is the energy greater or is it smaller? You literally can't define it. You just have to be like, okay, I'm going. Let's go, Shannon. And attend the class. And every single time my world blows up. And I'm just so grateful for that because then it just gets better and I don't have to stop at, you know, the stop. I don't have to.
I love what both of you guys are saying because it's like exactly what sort of goes on for me. Like before these big classes too, I'm sort of like, maybe I shouldn't anymore, or like, you know, you know, these weird things that pop up, and then I totally like receive so much more from that class, and then there's so much more available. And at this point, at least, I know mostly like I still have this sometimes sort of dread / excitement, you know, before the classes, but there's a knowing of fuck this shit, you know, like there's so much more possible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking have it and not go into this pathetic shit and not go into this. And I do this. I still do this, but it's like now I know more to be like to change that and to choose something different rather than sort of wallow in it. So it's, I mean, isn't it interesting? Like this is sort of like life in the streets. It's not like you get here and it's perfect and it's like da-da-da. Like that's what happens on movies and TV shows and shit, and that's what like this reality tries to sell. But when you're engaged with creating your life and actually desiring something different and more, then you're actually engaged and you're aware of so much, and you have so much come up, quote unquote, but then it's like it's not really coming up for you. It's like something you can facilitate, and it's always an invitation to greater and to more greatness.
Yeah, here's more greatness.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Pleasure. So, like I said, there's going to be more of these in different languages. We've got a bunch of different languages lined up. They'll come out as, we're not going to like tell people about it a week before, more than a week beforehand, because it sort of gets all a bit confused, and all the graphics look very similar. So people will be like, ah. So there's going to be another English one. There'll be German ones, Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese, French,
Yay.
Turkish, maybe even Czech. There'll be some other ones. So, and thank you guys for everyone that's come and joined us here and watched this. How does it get even better?
How does it get any better? Sorry about the sirens. We are. Yay!
To the class.
Go to the class. People are dead.
Or go to the class, or the men in white will take you away, because you will think you're crazy when you're actually not.
Like it. Thank
that.
you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Leave this dude.